Jelly Sound Archive.
Hello, this is an interview for Jelly Sound Archive. I'm Luke Dalton and I work as part of the Jelly team. And with me today I've got the guitarist for Diamond Head, Brian Tatler, and thank you for joining us. Can you offer me a little bit of background into how Diamond Head first formed?
Yeah, okay. Formed in 1976 at school. We all went to the same school, or three of us did. We went to Hyde Park School in Wollaston. It's now called Ridgewood. And I'd already been playing guitar a little bit, because I had my older brother, 6 years older than me, played guitar, and sort of got me interested and all that. So I formed the band kind of with myself and the drummer Duncan Scott. And we formed it in my bedroom, and then we auditioned a few singers, all from the school. I just went around and asked my friends if any of them could sing, and some of them turned up and they couldn't. And then one chap who was recommended, called Sean Harris, could sing, so he got the job as the singer. And then we had a couple of bass players and settled on this guy called Colin Kimbley, who was also a friend, lived just down the road from me, and but he went to a different school. He went to King Edward's in Stourbridge. And that was it, really. We formed the band, and we didn't have a clue about how to play gigs or get gigs or anything, and just pretty much went round pubs, in Wollaston and Stourbridge, and asked if we could play. And very often it'd be a place where they don't normally have bands on, but you'd be able to set up on the carpet, set up in the bay window or whatever, and we'd do things like that, and just sort of get it going like that. And we learnt the craft of writing songs, but with the aid of a cassette recorder that we'd just record in the bedroom and record straight onto cassette, and then listen back to it and analyse it. And if we didn't like it, we'd say, I don't like that bit, and change that bit, and that bit don't work. And we'd keep writing these songs, and we'd written lots and lots of songs, and learned from our experience that way, really.
In those early days, when you were forming Diamond Head, who were your influences as a guitarist who really spurred you on to play guitar in a band?
Yeah, Richie Blackmore is always going to be number one for me. I wanted to be able to play the guitar solo in Highway Star off the album Machine Head.
Yeah.
The Deep Purple guitarist, Richie Blackmore. And I couldn't figure that out, but that's sort of what I aimed to do, and I thought maybe one day if I practiced long enough I'd be able to be as good as Richie Blackmore.
Yes.
But as I said, a minute ago, I've got an older brother who played guitar a little bit and played in a few pub bands. I used to call it pub rock. Do cover versions of Rolling Stones and things like that. So I could go to Dave, and say, how do you play a chord or a riff or something or a lick? And he'd be able to show me. And so I learned quite a bit off Dave in the beginning. And then eventually I overtook Dave, and he stopped playing really, sort of late 70s. And I carried on and became obsessed with it. And practiced really. So and after Blackmore, I'd say probably people like Jimmy Page, and for riffs, Tony Iommi, the Black Sabbath guitarist.
Yes,
he was. I always considered Tony Iommi to be probably the best riff writer.
Yeah.
So I wanted to write songs like Black Sabbath and come up with really good riffs. And most of the Diamond Head songs would be based on a riff. We'd start with the riff and build it from there, the music first.
One of your first gigs, which took place down at Hyde Park School in Stourbridge, do you have any stories or memories to share of that?
Yeah, it was our first gig in 1977.
Yeah.
And we sold tickets, I think they were 30p each, we sold about 180 tickets. So we thought we'd done really well. I can remember, being a bit nervous about it, and it's all very new. And when we started up, the first song, which was an old song called Grassroots, which never got recorded, it probably wasn't very good. Everything fed back. The PA fed back the mics, the guitars, and it was just this din, for a couple of minutes. So we stopped mid-song.
Yeah.
And tried to sort the sound out and did a bit of another sound check. And then started the same song again, you know.
Oh, right, okay.
Because we didn't know any better. So we'll start that one again then, because we hadn't had a chance to probably get to the end of it.
Yes.
So that was something we never did again. You know, we learned from our mistake there and then.
Yeah.
And I think it was because the PA had turned up late. We'd only borrowed it off a friend. You know, he said, I've got a PA. And he turned up late. We didn't have a sound check, you know what it's like. But it was very exciting to be on stage and playing the guitar, and they clapped at the end of every number, you know, and so it's exciting for us. It was quite a night. To actually go from your bedroom to being on stage is a huge move, and I think every single gig you learn something from.
Do you have any stories or memories to share with us from your touring days when you supported Iron Maiden and AC/DC?
Yeah, the two AC/DC gigs were particularly exciting, shall we say, because we loved AC/DC.
Yes.
All four members of Diamond Head absolutely loved AC/DC. So when we were offered the gig, do you want to support AC/DC? We jumped at it and we thought, this is fantastic. You know, both gigs were sold out. It was Newcastle Mayfair and Southampton Gormont. Both were for 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And we went on stage, and the crowd liked us as well. And it almost like a penny dropped in our minds. This is 1980, don't forget, so early days. We hadn't got a record deal or anything at this point. We started to think, wow, you know, if a big crowd have only come to see AC/DC, don't know Diamond Head from Adam, don't know any Diamond Head songs, we can go down really well in front of these people. If they like us, anything's possible. You know, we could potentially break into any market then. So that had a really big impression on us, supporting AC/DC. And then they were really good to us because they let us have a big long sound check, and they even tuned our drum kit for us, because we didn't know how to do it. And our drummer, he'd go, hit the tom-tom, you can boing, and he'd say, it's a bit out of tune, you know, and so he'd mess around for a bit. And in the end, their drum tech says, I'll tune it for you if you like, mate. And so AC/DC's drum tech tuned our drum kit up so that it sounded better through the PA. And, so little things like that gave us such a, buzz. And we thought, oh, it's great, they're looking after us, They weren't being rock stars. They weren't being,
yes,
I'm not talking to you, I'll ignore you, or you've only got 10 minutes, boys, you hurry up, kind of thing. They were really generous, and it made a big impression.
Your first album, Lightning to the Nations, features songs that were later on covered by Metallica. To what extent did this help you gain an even wider audience as a result of exposure to Metallica fans?
Well, I mean, that's come eventually. Obviously, at first, there was no such thing as Metallica, so we were doing it. We were doing our own thing. We did that first album, ourselves. Kind of our manager popped us into a studio, and we sold the record at gigs and mail order, things like that. This is before we had a record deal in '82. And then, Am I Evil always became, or quite quickly became, shall we say, the main song in the set.
Yes.
It became the most popular song. It's the one that you had to do. It became either the encore or the last song or something like that. And people picked up on its riff and its chorus and its simplicity and things like that. So that first album was a very important album to us. I mean, because it had the 4 songs that Metallica covered on it. So, and it became a kind of metal classic, even though at the time we couldn't even get a record deal with it. People didn't particularly... a couple of journalists loved it, but they didn't go overboard with it. The way they might do now, I mean, they rave about it now, but at the time it was seen as a bit of... I'm not sure, really. It just... Maybe the record companies didn't think it was... metal... Maybe metal was looked down upon a little bit at that time. It's a lot bigger than it was.
Yes.
So I think the Metallica thing came around quite a bit later.
Yeah.
They first covered us in '84, which is almost as Diamond Head were kind of phasing out because we'd already been dropped. We were dropped in January 1984. Then we struggled on for another year doing some club gigs and another album which never which was never released. And then Metallica released Am I Evil as a B-side to their Creeping Death EP. But at this point, they were only on a small label called Music for Nations. And they didn't sell that many records, and they weren't that big. And so, although it was very flattering to me, and it was fascinating that this band had covered one of our songs and had gone into such detail about it, we didn't think this is a whole new lease of life for the band, or this will go on to make money or anything like that.
Yes.
It just seemed like a novelty at first, and flattering that, Lars and Metallica had covered a Dominant song. And it wasn't really until, I'd say, the late 80s, where Metallica were getting very big, and they were constantly name-dropping Diamond Head, that it became obvious that Diamond Head should probably reform and make another record, really, because it'd be daft not to.
When you opened for Metallica and Megadeth at the National Bowl in Milton Keynes in 1993, what was this concert like? Could you tell me anything about it?
Well, it was the biggest gig we'd ever played at that point. And, of course, Metallica were conquering the world. They'd been on the road since 91, so they'd done 250 gigs by the time they rolled into Milton Keynes Bowl. And we just knew that we hadn't done hardly anything in the past couple of years, because we'd put the band back together and we'd done this album, but we hadn't done a gig for 18 months, and we'd got a new bass player and we were trying to do new songs, so the pressure was on Diamond Head to step up to this sort of level where Metallica were at, and open for Metallica, and of course Metallica keeps saying how great Diamond Head are, so you've got a lot to live up to there. People are checking you out, okay, what's all the fuss about?
Yes.
So there was a bit of pressure, and then not only that, we knew it was being recorded for an album, live album. It was being filmed for MTV. It was being broadcast on Radio 1. Every journalist was there. It was all, you better be good on the day kind of thing. But we kind of had a week of rehearsals before, which turned into a couple of days because interviews were shoved in and what have you. So. And then I became ill with shingles, and there was a lot of arguing and rowing between and inside the band. And it turned out that the singer wanted to do another project as soon as this was finished. He wanted to move on and do another band.
Yes.
And sign to RCA Records, but he didn't in the end. It never happened. But he'd lost interest again in Diamond Head at this point. So it was a kind of, well, let's do the gig, put the album out, make the most of it. But I thought pretty much as soon as it's done, Sean's going to want to move on. And that's what happened, except he didn't get another record deal. He kind of disappeared.
You started work on a fourth studio album entitled Flight East, which was unfortunately never released. Mm-hmm. Would there be any chance of this album having a late release for fans at all? Or?
No, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. I mean, it wasn't finished for a start. So there was only 5 songs. There was 9 songs recorded, 5 were finished where they had actual vocals on, and it was mixed. And those 5 would made them, run off on cassette, and the manager took them to Meadham, the music festival in Cannes, in order to try and get another record deal for Diamond Head, but it didn't happen. So the band kind of folded after that news. And the tapes were just kind of left unfinished and untouched. I don't own the tapes. And neither does any of the members of the band. They were kind of owned by the manager, really, because he paid for the studio. But he's dead now. Our old manager, Reg, died in 2004. So I don't really know what's going to happen to that. And to be honest, I don't really care.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it to come out on some dodgy label and somebody just rip it off.
Yes, yeah.
I'd want to be involved if it was coming out. I'd want to listen to it and make sure it sounded good and things like that. But I would not pursue it and make it happen.
Yes.
I wouldn't put energy into it because I don't think it was that great. It was another direction change, because Canterbury was a huge direction change, and this was getting even more of a direction change. It's not heavy metal in the slightest. It's veering towards pop. It's
Yes.
very light, piano, harmonies, quite soft, quite clean.
You recently wrote an autobiography entitled Am I Evil? How easy or difficult was it to write this autobiography, having spent most of your life being involved in music?
Well, it's obviously the only thing that I'm qualified to write about, because I've been doing this since, mid-70s, and I'm kind of known for being a guitarist. I'm always, that's Brian from Diamond Head, or he's a guitarist type thing. So that's all I do, and it's all I know about. And every interview I do, it's about the band, or how it started, or how you get a deal, or how we met Metallica, etc. So a lot of these stories have been retold and retold, and so when the idea for doing a book came about, I thought, well, I can remember key events, because people have asked me about key events, like what was Donington like, what was Reading like, and all that. So I've got a kind of memory for certain stories. I can't remember every gig, because there's hundreds and hundreds of them, and a gig had to almost be extraordinary,
Yes.
for it to warrant telling, or for me to have been asked about it. What was that gig like? And so, I was encouraged to start, and I thought, well, I'll have a go. I never thought I could write a book, because I don't feel I'm, very literary, or I do read a lot, but I just never thought I'd write a book. But of course, if I'm going to write a book, it's got to be about me and Diamond Head, because that's, again,
Yes.
what I know most about. So I made a start, and I thought I'll just start chronologically at the beginning, remember everything I possibly could, and ask other people as well, and even do what you're doing now, and go round to somebody's house and interview them. And I just did it like that, and over a period of 18 months, me sitting at Word, I couldn't have done it freehand or with a typewriter.
Yes.
But with the invention of Word, you can chop and change, can't you? And
Yes.
email and stuff. So I was able to do it, slow but sure, over a period of 18 months. And I'm glad I did, because I wanted to get it down on paper before I forgot the stories. Because eventually, as you get older, you will forget what you did 20 years ago. And so I just thought, if I don't do it, who's going to do this? Nobody else is going to write this book. Let's get it down on paper. And if people think it's rubbish, so be it. But it's done. And I was pretty pleased with it, but I'm fussy.
Yeah.
And most other people love it and seem to think it's great. And full of things that nobody ever knew about Diamond Head.
Your band has had some lineup changes over the years. Are you still in contact with any former members of Diamond Head?
Yeah, Duncan Scott is still one of my best friends, the original guy who formed the band with. And he came to see us at Somersphere last week. And so I speak to Duncan all the time, he's great. I speak to Colin. I don't speak to Sean at the moment, we kind of parted ways. I think he was a bit, miffed that we carried on without him, we've got another singer in. But the other guy's fine. So, I'm in touch with a couple of other people, like Robbie, who was in the band for a couple of years, who now lives in Spain. I'm in touch with him still via email and occasional phone calls. And, I think everybody's pretty cool about being in Diamond Head. They all think it's one of their favourite moments in time. Nobody's got any bad axe to grind with me or the band or anything. I don't think there was a lot of rip off or bad vibes going down.
Are there any plans for another studio album with Diamond Head in the near future? Or?
No, not at the moment, because we've got people who live abroad, and we've done 2 albums with Nick, the new singer. And we know what they're going to sell pretty much, because CD sales are so low at the moment. It takes about a year to write and record an album. So
Yes.
that kind of effort almost has to be worthwhile. And just to be able to say we've got a new album coming out is not really, a reason to do it for me anymore. I need to have a good reason to do another album.
Yes.
I know it'll only sell the same amount of copies that the last 2 have sold, and the amount of effort to put into it is just not right at the moment. So I've got bits of music that if I come up with an idea, I'll always record it, because you never know when you're going to need something. And I've got tons of bits of music, should we say. I've got a little Pro Tools rig that I use to record ideas on, and I quite like that, experimenting and trying to find great ideas. But we don't have the opportunity to get together as a band and work on material.
Yes.
Because usually when we get together, it's for a gig. We've got a tour coming up or a festival or something. So we all arrive at the rehearsal room and we go for the set, and we haven't got time to jam new ideas and work on new songs.
What advice would you give to bands and artists who are struggling to make it in the music industry? Have you got anything to... Any advice?
Songs.
Yeah.
Number one is songs. You have to have good songs.
Yeah.
I think that is be the biggest piece of advice I could give. Keep working on songs. Keep writing songs. You're never going to have enough songs. Even if you've got 100 written, they'll get used up, and then you're going to need another one. So you can't have enough songs. Keep writing. That's the thing that will stick around long after your band and you've gone, if they're good enough. That's where the money is. That's where the currency is. It's important to have a good singer, but if your songs are strong enough, people will, get into the band anyway, I think, regardless of how good your singer is. A good singer can help sell a good song.
Yeah.
But it's almost like your song's got to be so strong that anybody could sing it, and you could almost sing it on acoustic guitar, and it'll still, sound good.
And I suppose if you sing the song with conviction, even if you're not a great vocalist, you'll still be able to carry it off and project it.
That's right. There's a few singers that I won't name names who aren't great, but people love them.
Yeah.
And they do it with passion, and people believe in them, and they write good songs, and I think that's number one. So I don't think you could say, well, you've got to just get a good manager, or you've got to sort out your website. It's not as simple as that.
Yes, yeah.
Because there ain't many good managers for a start, and you ain't going to just find a good manager if you're nothing, because they're not going to be interested in you. You're not going to have any currency. But if you've got some good songs, eventually somebody will come to you and say, you're good, you've got good songs, you've got good material, and you will get picked on, I think. I think you'll get picked up. If your songs are good enough and you can keep the band together, that's got to be one of the hardest things in this music industry, is keeping the band together. Because so many bands, including Diamond Head, split up.
Yes.
It's rare for a band like U2, very ultra rare, for the original members to still be going after 35 years. So rare.
That was an interview with Brian Tatler. Watch out for more interviews for Jelly Sound Archive in the future. Thank you very much, and goodbye.